One of the things that just dawns on me here is the truth about how speed has a quality all its own. I see it, right? Like by sheer fact of physics, when something goes faster, it takes on different qualities. We're talking about something that used to happen, as you said, like every decade or so. This wasn't something that was like, hey, let's play with this as though it were a light switch in my kids' room that they flick on and off when they should be going to bed. Just saying. Speed and how quickly this is happening in a matter of weeks, not decades, I think is going to have unintended consequences. As you mentioned, I think there's a lot of on the ground work that is getting scuttled, frankly, right now that has been in the works, has been planned for the midterms in these cities and local areas and battleground areas and areas that weren't battlegrounds that are now battlegrounds. And you're like, oh my gosh, how do we redeploy? There's a lot of shifting there, not to mention, notwithstanding the fairly sad, incredibly sad regression on voting rights here that was created for a very good reason. But honestly, it's keeping promises that they said make America great again, which people figure was about 1950 when America was real great for only a select few Americans. And this is the promise. This is the promise being kept. So I think when I look on the ground, if I'm a nonprofit and I am doing educational services, food, pantry, family services, anything that has a, frankly, geographic footprint in and across these districts, what's going to happen is you're going to need to remap your data. I think there's like a retagging and a new narrative. You're going to have to say like, hey, we used to be, District 1. Now we're districts 1 through 5. Okay, let's talk about the, 372 children that we're supporting in here, the food assistance being offered in District 2 for the new person who's going to jump into this seat overnight so that they understand your relative impact in that new district, even though you are spread across, because this opens up, as you said, like new relationships that needed to be formed. But I look at the data and say like, all right, what does our impact look like in that district? What can it look like? How do we map it? How do we tell that story as quickly as possible? And I feel like you have some personal, I know we won't give away too much information, but in college, you may or may not have been in a building that had been in separate districts, and it was not an accident. What is that like when you're on the ground trying to do mobilization for someone who's like, hold on?
Yeah, George, that's exactly right. So among my volunteer activities, I helped with some get out the vote efforts during a particular pivotal year in American political history in a particularly pivotal swing state, I will say. So that came with a whole bunch of stress. But George, my university was not big university, was split into 4 or 5 different voting precincts. And I think actually part of one of those precincts was actually in a different congressional district. And the idea here, George, was it was a dissolution of student voting power as a block, right? I will say that these students, many of whom were out of state, tend to lean potentially Democratic, progressive, right? There was a conscientious effort to dissolve or thwart the political power of the student body as a block, and as such made it as hard as possible, to the point when we were telling people, where to vote. It came down to asking, what specific freshman dorm building they were in, because that could be the determining factor between which precinct they have to get their butts to. So, that's just at the hyper-local level. But we're going to see that again and again and again throughout the country, particularly in states engaged in this redistricting battle. And
to be clear, if I go to the wrong voting center, right, if I got redistricted, I always went to the same place down by PS whatever school, and that's where I used to go. And I got redistricted, and I go to the wrong place. What happens to my vote?
George, I don't even think you're allowed to sign in. I think they're just going to
Oh, that's interesting. So you're telling me speed is going to play a factor in how quickly we change the rules for all of these places down to where I need to go in order to vote, disrupting years, maybe decades of historical patterns and practice and understanding.
Yeah, George, that's exactly it. And some of these districts, a little funky. You might be in one district, the neighbors across the street, they're in a new different district. And George, to your point, speed as a quality all of its own. And the fact that this is happening as some people are already beginning to vote in primaries is going to have a real impact.
All right. What do we got? That's a bummer.
That's George.